Przed nami mój wspaniały kolega z mikrofonem, już czeka. Jakbyście mogli się od razu ustawić, to będzie, no już mamy pierwszą osobę, to będę wiedział też, ilu tak naprawdę jest chętnych, żeby porozmawiać z naszymi gwiazdami. A w takim razie na scenę zapraszam Daniela Portmana. A Daniel dzisiaj w parze z niezastąpionym, legendarnym Julianem Gloverem. Przed nami mój wspaniały kolega z mikrofonem, już czeka. Jakbyście mogli się od razu ustawić, to będzie, no już mamy Game of Thrones. What it meant for you as an actor? Because as we was talking yesterday about you, Julian, that you've been in so many other big projects, so I can imagine that this was another big project for you, but not so big. And for you, it was a big breakthrough.
For me, I mean, I was 19 when I got the job on Game of Thrones, which was 7 years ago. So it's been a big part of my development as a person, as a human being, as well as a great thing for my career. But when I got the job, I couldn't believe that I was going to be on something that was made by HBO to start with, because they make such great TV, but also working with so many great actors. Like you said, Julian's been in everything, you know. He's done everything. So working with people like Julian and Charles Dance and people along, you know, that standard, it means a lot, you know. It's a really, really lovely experience for me.
Charles Dance used to be my understudy. You know what that word means?
Not really.
Oh, by the way, was there anybody here yesterday? Go away, because I have nothing new to say.
No, actually, there is one scene that was cut out of the series, but we can see it on DVD, where when you and Charles Dance have a conversation, when he sees that you're only pretending to be.
Can I tell the story of that? Do you
Yes.
mind? About after my second or third week on the film, I went to the writers and said, "This is no good. I don't have enough to do. I'm a better actor than this, and I'm going to ask to leave the series unless you can do something with me." So they went away and they came back with exactly what I wanted. They said, and they got it from when we were filming. I'd be standing talking to my friends. They'd say, "Turn over." I would go down into my position, complete the scene. Then when they say, "Cut" at the end, I would stand up again and talk to my friend. They got the idea that Pycelle was someone who was disguising what he really was, and that's his means of survival in this terrible world of Westeros. Okay. They then gave me a lovely scene where I was, you may remember, I was in it just getting out of bed with a gorgeous girl, and she went out and I stood up and did some exercises, got dressed, went to the door and went down again. So you all knew that I was pretending. They didn't pursue this idea in the series until series 5, when they gave me this wonderful scene with Tywin on the beach, when he says, I know what you're up to. And I say, okay, you've understood what I'm doing. So I stand up fully and explain my position. And he's still horrible to me, but he at least understands it. And the audience then understood that I was someone, they were reminded that I was someone being somebody else. They cut that scene, as you say. And I was so cross about that. I was really white hot with anger because it was so important to my continuing the film, the series. So I said to them after that, you've done this. I have no function in this series anymore. All I am there is someone for Cersei to be horrible to, which she was all the time. Ghastly woman. Oh, what a ghastly woman. Almost worse than Joffrey. Ghastly woman. I said, I'm fed up with that, so I don't want to do the series anymore. They said, well, you've got to do the series. I said, no, I don't. They said, yes, you have, because we have a wonderful story for you, a scene for you in series 6. I said, oh, have you? Can I see it, please? No, 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 of course you can't see it. You know that. But they won't let you see anything in advance because of this secrecy thing that goes on now in making television films. Well, I said, okay, well, bye-bye. And until eventually they did send me the scene. I'm cutting a very long story short, I'm afraid, for me. And it was the death scene that I did, which really was a very, very good scene. So I phoned up my agent and said, you can tell them I will do this scene for 3 times the money. 10 minutes later, they were back saying yes. So it shows, it proves that if you don't want something, you'll get it. So that was the end of me on that series.
Daniel, do you have any such scenes that they cut off and they will probably be on some DVD or you cherish them but we didn't see them in the series?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I think mostly was, you know, often what we read on the page of the script is, you know, you would read a much longer scene than ends up in the show. And for me, mostly, it's not scenes that have been cut out, but it's parts of scenes that have been cut out that I, you know, that I would hope would maybe be on the DVD. But I'm not really sure, to be honest, if any of that stuff has made it to behind the scenes or if it's just sitting on the cutting room floor somewhere. But mostly, they've been quite fair with all my stuff. They haven't you know, cut any scenes and left it for the DVD extras or anything.
When you work in movies, you get used to scenes being cut. Whole scenes, whole elements of a film. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there was a very fine actor who was playing someone who was piloting an aeroplane, a Nazi aeroplane, a two-wing, what are they called? A biplane. And a long sequence with him and Indiana Jones, who was in the balloon. Long sequence of fighting and all that. That whole section was cut, maybe 10 minutes of film, and they substituted something else for that. Well, that's show business, but in my case, it was so important to my character, the whole reason for me being there for 6 years of my life was cut, and that's why I was angry.
And Julian, I found a rumor in the internet that you were trying to get the role of James Bond. Is it true?
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't asked to play it. I was asked to audition for it. And there were about 6 of us being considered. And we all met before we did our tests, and we all said, there's no point in doing this, is there? Because Roger Moore's going to get it. and, and indeed, that's exactly. We all did our audition to the best of our abilities. 3 days later, the new James Bond will be Roger Moore, who was an absolute shoo-in for the part. He had to play it. He'd been waiting to play Bond, or his whole essence had been waiting to play Bond for all his career, and he was wonderful. So we didn't mind that. I didn't mind that. I'd like to have played 007. Yeah, I would, but I didn't. Show business.
But they came back to you with another proposition to be in Bond movie, but not as a James Bond.
Not as James Bond, yes. I don't think that was a compensation. I don't think it was a prize for being rejected as James Bond. I hope it was because they thought I was good at villains. Actually, I got that film, the James Bond film, playing that villain. The whole point of that James Bond film, that the bad people should seem to be very reasonable human beings. They weren't people with hooks on the ends of their arms or hats that, you know, or anything like that. They had to be people, and my character had to be very charming and very nice. And I got that part through doing a documentary film about Alexander Dubček of Czechoslovakia, which I played. It's a wonderful piece called Invasion. You know all about that here. And because I played it, and Mrs. Broccoli, the wife of the producer, saw that and said, that's the man we need, somebody really nice, very persuasive and honest. That's the man we need for Christatos. And so I got the part, and indeed I hope that's what happened. You didn't know he was the villain until after you knew that Topol wasn't the villain. So that's what happened with that one. And so I did get that one on my own merits, not because I'd been turned down for James Bond.
And Daniel, when you're playing Podrick, this is a guy who is particularly nice, a good fellow. And wouldn't you be glad that he shows some dark side of his character?
I think the thing about the universe that David and Dan and George R.R. Martin have created is that nobody exists in good or bad. Everybody, as much as they might appear to, all of these characters exist in a completely human grey area, and that's what makes the show what it is the fact that nobody is purely good, nobody's purely bad. All of it is down to perspective and circumstances. You think that Podrick's a good guy because you're on his side, because that's how the story is told. The story was told in another way, I might be the worst character in the whole show. So, you know, it's about perspective. And I think that's the brilliant thing is you could flip the perspective of the film, of the series, and all the characters, the story would remain more or less the same, but the characters would be entirely different. So it's nice to play a good guy, as it were, but I do think there's a lot more to him than that, certainly.
Well, what was wonderful about your character was that he was a good guy, as far as we're concerned. And a good, actually, I don't think you're right about that. I think there were some very bad guys in it, and they were meant to be bad guys in it. And so when you found someone who was nice, you immediately related to him. You went, oh yes, at least someone's talking sense here and being kind to his friends. And you saw that with him. My character, you didn't see any, I don't know what you thought about it. Some people think he was all right. Some people think that he was horrible. I didn't think he was horrible because I was him. And all the villains I played, I never thought they were horrible because I knew why they were doing what they were doing, which reflects what you're saying. But one was always pleased to see, when he came on, one always knew that there was going to be an element of human kindness in that scene.
And looking on your characters, you said, Julian, that your character was a survivor, that he would do everything that survived. What drives Podrick, in your opinion?
The thing for me that I've always found has been a sort of consistent motivation was he lives to be dutiful. If he is given an instruction and it involves helping somebody and putting somebody before himself, that is what he lives for. And that's what I've always felt is the thing that's most reflected is selflessness.
That was what was so nice about watching you.
Okay, we will start with our questions from the audience. Daniel, I will ask you for help with translation. Okay.
Hi, I love you both, guys. You are great. I've got two quick questions. First one to Daniel Portman.
Hi.
You fought with Brienne in Game of Thrones. In your opinion, who is the best swordsman in Seven Kingdoms?
Brienne of Tarth, without a doubt.
Okay.
Brienne of Tarth. It has to be Brienne of Tarth. She beat the Mount. She beat the Hound. She takes on like 5 soldiers at a time, and she's undoubtedly as Brienne of Tarth.
Okay, thank you very much.
And she's the nicest girl that ever lived, isn't she?
Yeah, she's Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Brienne, is nothing like her character. She is bubbly and very sweet and confident, and she's a really beautiful person and a great actor as well.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is to Julian Glover, and it's about Star Wars. How was it like to stand in front of Lord Vader?
Well, you know, one has one's various methods. Darth Vader was the most frightening person in the whole film. And I had to tell myself all the time, which was the truth, that actually I was standing in front of a plastic carapace, under which was a very nice man who was saying the words, but who wasn't the man who you were going to hear in the cinema, and a man who was a very nice man, but a terrible actor. So I had to invent my, my raison d'etre for that scene and pretend, I suppose acting's all about pretending, isn't it? That he was a very terrifying creature. However, it did give me the idea of being fairly confident in that scene and not being frightened. I hope I didn't appear frightened. If I did, I don't know what happened because I wasn't frightened, and I didn't think the General Veers was either. So that gave me a little bit of a twist of strength for it, which led into the big battle at the end. And I know I was very, very cool about it all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to ask if you could bring one character of Game of Thrones back to life, but killing the other who's still alive, who'd you bring back, who'd you kill, and why?
Ned Stark.
Stark.
And who'd you kill?
The trouble is, if Ned Stark came back, there wouldn't be any Game of Thrones story, because it would all be lovely.
I would bring back Maester Pycelle, I think.
Give him something to do.
Absolutely. Put him on the throne, that's what I'd do.
Give him more women to go to bed with.
But who'd you kill?
Who would I kill
Yeah.
and replace?
Exactly.
Let's go for... yeah, Cersei. Kill Cersei.
Thank you.
I want... When she was walking down the street naked, you remember, when she had her head shaved and all that, and she was completely humiliated. By the way, how did she get away with that? Why is she still in the series? Anyway, when she was doing that, it was a big scene, if you remember, she walked down the street and the crowds all around jeering at her. I was only among the lords. I wasn't picked out. And they brought me back 3 months after the film was finished to do that one shot of my pleasure at seeing her in such a dreadful situation. And that was one of the most comfortable, easy things to do I've ever done on film. So that's your answer for that one. To come back, definitely Ned Stark. I mean, who do you all want to be king when it ends?
Hi, I have a quick question. What do you think about the relationship between Podrick and Brienne?
What do I think of the relationship between Podrick and Brienne? I think it's 100% platonic, non-sexual. I know what you're getting at, and you're not getting what you think you're going to get. I think it's platonic, non-sexual, friend-based relationship where she is the dominating force in that friendship. Simple as that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. First is to both of you. If you can choose who from the leading characters who could win finally the war for the Iron Throne, who should that be?
Again, I would say Brienne of Tarth, because it gives me a job and a nice high-powered position. But also she has the moral capabilities and, you know, the raw strength and skills to get the job done. So I think Brienne of Tarth would be excellent.
Tyrion. And that's a short answer. I just think he's a most marvellous character, wonderfully played. God, he's a good actor, that man. And he, despite his faults, is, I think at the moment, the brightest, more aware of the problems of governorship of anybody there. A lot of people did, well, he disagrees with me, but that's who I would love to see perching on that throne. It would be lovely to see him there.
Ja tylko przerwę i taka informacja tutaj od organizatorów. Jest zrobione dodatkowa możliwość na zrobienie sobie zdjęciu z Holland Roden, która rozpocznie się za 5 minut tutaj w budkach fotograficznych. Please proceed.
Thank you for that answer. And the second question is to Mr. Julian. Since you are remembered as mostly from the iconic villains in movies, like as the scene, like as the villains like Christopher in Bonds, General Vince in Star Wars, Walter Donovan in Last Crusade, and of course Maester Pycelle in the Game of Thrones. But on what playing in what of that movies, what shooting of that movies, what was most enjoyable for you?
Well, my favourite film is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. My films. Films I've been in, I mean. Not my films. Julian Glover's film. That'll be the day. And that was, I hope for obvious reasons, that it was a simply wonderful part. Again, someone who seems to be a good man, who's on the same quest as Indiana Jones is, turns into what you call a villain. It was a very interesting transition, very nice to play, and comparatively easy to play, because I could see into his mind, because I don't agree that he's a villain. I put it to you, everybody in this room here, what would you do for the secret of eternal life? What would you do? Well, he does what he does, and therefore he's called a villain in the eyes of the world. I call him deeply pragmatic.